The country is buying up Australian farmland and what it means for global food security. You're about to finish watching this video, and you'll never look at your neighbor's farm the same way again. Because right now, literally today, foreign investors are buying Australian farmland at a rate faster than Australian farmers can replace themselves. I'm talking about 20 million acres. That's roughly the size of South Carolina. And here's the thing. You probably didn't know it was even legal. But wait, before we begin, please subscribe to ensure that you never miss out on any of my essential stuff. Comment, "I subscribe" below, and I will personally welcome you to our community. With that said, let's get started. Meet Margaret. She's 68. She lives in Queensland. And for the last 40 years, she's been doing what her father taught her, raising sheep, knowing her soil, watching seasons turn. One morning in 2021, her phone rang at 7 a.m. It was a consortium, not Australian. They had an offer, $12 million for her 3,000 acres. That's double the market rate. Margaret told me what she felt in that moment. Her chest got tight, not excited tight, panic tight, because nobody just offers double market value for a reason. They made a condition. She had to leave immediately. No transition. No handover period. Just gone. When she asked why, they said it was optimal for the operational timeline. Margaret refused. But here's where it gets interesting. Her neighbor didn't. According to the Australian Office of Agricultural Commodities and Trade, between 2018 and 2023, foreign ownership of Australian farmland jumped 34% in 5 years. And China, they alone hold 2.5% of all farmland. But it gets worse, because this isn't just about real estate. This is about food, your food, every person on Earth's food. And the strategy is way darker than anyone's talking about. When you look at who's buying farmland globally, you see a pattern. It's not random investors. It's countries. Entire nations are playing chess on agricultural board, and most of us don't know the rules. Imagine being told, your wheat will feed Beijing, not Brisbane. Imagine a stranger controlling whether your family eats this year. That's not hypothetical. That's happening right now across the developing world. And Australia's next. MIT did research in 2022, just published their findings. And here's what they found. Nations that control foreign farmland secure about 40% of their domestic food import needs. Think about that. 40%. That's not a business strategy. That's national survival. China has 1.4 billion people. Australia has 26 million. Do the math. China's own agricultural land is degrading. Their soil quality's tanked about 33% in the last 2 decades. So they're not investing in Australian farmland to make money off quarterly returns. They're investing to feed their people when their own soil can't anymore. But then there's the UAE, and their strategy isn't about food. It's about something worth more than food. I want to tell you about David Chun. He's 72. He spent 30 years managing water rights in Victoria. One day in 2019, he started noticing something odd. Middle Eastern companies were buying farmland. Lots of it. But they weren't interested in crop yields or soil quality. Every meeting was the same. They'd ask, how deep's the water? How much can we extract annually? What's the junior water status? They didn't care about farming. They cared about what was under farming. David realized they were buying farmland specifically for aquifer access, underground water. When commodity prices fluctuate, water prices only go up. It's a better investment. It's also a stranglehold on survival. The World Water Council released a report in 2023 saying agricultural water scarcity will spike 55% by 2050. 55%. And whoever controls the aquifers controls the future. Between 2010 and 2024, foreign ownership of water-dependent farmland in Australia jumped 47%. When David understood what was happening, he told me, "It felt like someone was selling my grandchildren's future to strangers." That's not paranoia. That's clarity. He was watching Australia's water become a tradable commodity on a foreign exchange. Now, not all foreign investment is predatory. Some brings real efficiency and capital to struggling rural communities. But without regulations, without rules saying you can't buy this or you must share water allocation with locals, it becomes extraction, pure extraction. And that's where the real danger appears. Because when you connect farmland ownership to food independence to geopolitical strategy, things get explosive really fast. Here's a countdown of what happens next. Most people don't see this connection, but once you do, you can't unsee it. Number 3. If China secures 15% of Australian grain production, we're already at 5% global wheat prices spike 18 to 22%. That's not a guess. That's from agricultural economists at UC Davis. And you know what 18% grain price increases historically cause? In 2008, they triggered food riots in over 30 countries. People literally starving because they couldn't afford bread. That's not ancient history. That's 16 years ago. Number 2, when smaller nations lose control of their own farmland, they lose leverage. India, Indonesia, Pakistan, they've all seen it. Foreign investors redirect crops to export markets. Suddenly, the people who grew the food can't afford to eat it. Their children go hungry. It happened in Ukraine. It's happening in parts of Africa right now. Number 1, food becomes a weapon. During the Russia-Ukraine war, countries that control foreign farmland suddenly cut exports. It was punishment via starvation. The FAO reported that 828 million people face hunger globally, a 150% jump from just 1 year prior. 150%. When you centralize who controls food production, you centralize who can weaponize hunger. The IMF studied this in 2024. Nations where 20% or more of farmland is foreign-controlled have 3 times higher food price volatility. 3 times. That means your grocery bill becomes a political hostage. This doesn't feel like your crisis yet. It won't. Not until the price of eggs triples and milk disappears from shelves. But it's coming. And it's coming because of decisions made in countries you'll never visit, on farmland you'll never see. But here's what keeps economists and defense strategists awake at night. I want you to imagine something. It doesn't require fantasy. Climate models suggest it's got a 60% probability in the next decade. Here goes. Australia faces a major drought. Not a bad year. A real, multi-year climate shift. Water becomes scarce. Suddenly, the Chinese consortium that owns 8 million acres of Australian farmland makes a decision. Redirect the harvest to Chinese markets. More profit there. Why waste it on local sales? Australian food inflation spikes 35%. Bread costs double. Families start skipping meals. Social unrest bubbles up. Government panics. They try to seize the foreign-owned farms, but that violates international trade law. China retaliates. Sanctions get slapped on. Australian economy contracts. You're unemployed. Your kid's school budget gets cut. All because farmland became a geopolitical hostage. This isn't speculation. Ukraine's farmland fell partly under Russian control in 2022. Global wheat supplies dropped 12% overnight. Developing nations saw bread prices double. In some countries, people were literally choosing between eating and heating. That was 2022. We learned nothing. The World Bank stress-tested geopolitical risks in 2023 and ranked farmland sovereignty crises in the top 5. Top 5. That means global institutions are telling us this is a threat, and we're ignoring it. Every empire thought it was too big to have its food supply weaponized. Every single one was wrong eventually. But here's where Australia's story diverges. Because while every other developed nation built safeguards, Australia did the opposite. I need you to understand how rare it is to be as open as Australia is, because it's kind of insane. In the United States, foreign ownership of agricultural land is capped at 1% per entity, and buyers have to prove national interest. In Canada, foreign buyers are basically banned unless they're proven agricultural operators. Strict vetting. Rigorous process. In Australia, there's no cap, no mandatory disclosure, no restrictions whatsoever. 63% of Australians surveyed didn't know foreign investors could own unlimited farmland. When they found out, 79% said, we need laws to stop it. 79%. That's not divided. That's unanimous outrage. Dr. Sarah Walsh is an agricultural economist at Macquarie University. She testified before Parliament in 2023 about farmland vulnerability. I asked her what that meeting was like. She said, I walked in thinking I'd be preaching to experts. I left realizing I was explaining basic risk management to people who'd never thought about it. She showed them data from Chinese agricultural delegations openly discussing 10-year farmland acquisition spreadsheets. Australia had no plan. Sarah told me, we're literally the only developed nation without a safety mechanism. We're the most vulnerable, and no one's talking about it. That's not opinion. That's observation. Documented. Peer-reviewed observation. She published her research in 2024, and it's sitting in Parliament gathering dust. New Zealand implemented farmland ownership caps in 2020. Foreign investment dropped 40%. Did farmland prices collapse? No. They stabilized. Farmers could actually afford to buy land again instead of selling to the highest bidder. It can be done. We know it works. So when you ask why this is happening, it's not because there's no solution. It's because politicians haven't chosen to implement it. That's negligence. That's gambling with your food security. But what might shock you is that there actually is a way forward. 3 countries figured it out, and their model works. If you've stuck with me this far, you probably want to know, what's the fix? Here are 3 real-world models at work. Japan restricts agricultural land to agricultural operators only. Foreign ownership? Essentially 0. How's their food independence? About 60%. Compare that to Australia's 45%. Higher self-sufficiency. More secure. It's not radical. It's just careful. Denmark and Sweden? They allow some foreign investment, but with conditions. Profit-sharing requirements with local communities. Regional caps at 20% maximum. Result. Foreign capital flows in without compromising food security. It's balanced. India banned non-citizen farmland ownership outright in 2021. People said agriculture would collapse. It didn't. Some foreign investors left. But here's what happened. Domestic farming became more profitable. Young people re-entered the sector. Agricultural output jumped 8% in 3 years. Farmers could actually afford to farm for their own future again instead of selling to speculators. Remember Margaret? The farmer who said no to the $12 million offer? Here's what she did next. She started a community land trust. Raised $4 million from local investors. When the Chinese operator defaulted 5 years later. Turns out the venture wasn't profitable. When commodity prices dropped, Margaret's trust bought the land back. Now she's training the next generation, using her model. Community-owned farmland has 34% higher long-term productivity, 47% higher local food output. It works. The model works. So here's what I want you to consider. What would change if your nation had Japan's farmland rules? But here's where urgency kicks in. Because while we've been talking about solutions, the problem's been accelerating. In 2018, Chinese entities owned 1.2 million acres of Australian farmland. By 2020, it was 2.1 million, a 75% jump in just 2 years. By 2023, it was 4.8 million acres, a 128% increase in 3 years. In 2024, we're projected to hit 7.2 million acres by year-end. Here's what matters. There's a critical threshold. At 15% foreign ownership, food independence becomes mathematically impossible. When too much of your farmland is controlled by external actors, you lose the ability to feed yourself. Australia is at 5% now. At current acceleration rates, we hit 15% by 2030. 6 years. This isn't something that happens to future generations. It's happening now. Your children will inherit a food system they don't control. That's not paranoia. That's trajectory. Which brings us to the final question, the one that matters most. Here's what I want you to actually think about, not just here. Is foreign farmland investment a threat to national security and food independence? Or is it a necessary source of capital for struggling Australian farmers? Or is it both, and we just need smarter rules instead of bans? Margaret could have taken the money and lived comfortably. She chose community instead. David watched his water rights become commodities. Both made choices that hurt and helped in different ways. But you have to decide what the precedent should be. 79% of Australians want restrictions on foreign farmland ownership. How many laws have been passed in the last 5 years to address it? 0. The gap between what people want and what governments deliver? It's growing. It's also suspicious. The farmland you'll never see is already feeding someone else's future. And that future is being decided by spreadsheets, not by you. So here's my question for you, and I genuinely want to know, if your nation suddenly restricted foreign farmland ownership like Japan or New Zealand did, would you support it? Or would you protect the investor's freedom to buy? Tell me in the comments. Don't hold back. The answer might actually shape policy, because when enough of us ask the same question, politicians eventually have to listen. Let me know where you stand.